So if you've ever looked at the GitHub repository of a GameMaker project in maybe the last year or so since the 2.3 update came out, you may or may not have noticed that the programming language that GitHub thinks most of your project is predominantly written in, and therefore the programming language that it displays on the screen when you preview the projects is not GameMaker language as it used to be and as it should be, but instead something called YACC, which, if you're anything like me, you've probably never heard of until GitHub started showing you this. And if you look inside the repository at the language being used, you may see that there is an amount of GameMaker language in the project, but you probably will also see that there is a substantial amount of YACC, as well as trace amounts of whatever else you're using, like GLSL, which is shaders, or NSys, which is a Windows installer script or something like that. YACC, as it turns out, is a fairly obscure language/tool. Stands for Yet Another Compiler, and it's something that GameMaker basically has no interest in using in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that GitHub thinks that your project is suddenly written in YACC predominantly is a mistake. It has to do with the way that GitHub auto detects the meta files, the .yy files that comprise your GameMaker project. And it would be nice if there was a simple setting somewhere in the GitHub repository settings that you could click on that would undo that. There isn't. Unfortunately, it's not quite that easy. But there is something that you can add to the repository called a gitattributes file, which should take care of this. So if I were to open up this repository here, this tower defense game, and if I were to go to help, open project in Explorer to open the Windows Explorer folder where this lives, and if I were to just go right click, create myself a let's just call it an empty text document, new text document.txt. I am simply going to call it .git attributes. No actual file name. It's just going to be a dot followed by git attributes. This is going to be a bit of a meta file for source control, and there's a couple different things you can put in here that would affect how the repository works. The thing that we care about is going to be this line here. I'm going to type star dot yy followed by a space linguist language linguist linguist hyphen language. I spelled that right. Equals GML, and that's just going to be this file. I'm going to save. I'm going to close that notepad window. I can go back to the project in GitHub desktop. I can just say added a git attributes file, and I can push this to the origin. And if I give that a moment, and if I go back to the project on github.com, and if I were to refresh the page, we should be seeing that YACC is gone. So we no longer have YACC all over our GitHub repository, and this is once again correctly being recognized as GameMaker language. And if I were to go back to the organization homepage, look at the repository, the pins, or down here, you would see that instead of being primarily identified as YACC, it is going to be once again primarily identified as GML. And if you're actually using GameMaker, that's what you want. If you actually have a YACC project of some sort, 1, what are you doing here? 2, I don't really have a second question besides that. But you can do this. It doesn't really matter what GitHub thinks your project is. It doesn't really matter. It may, I'm not sure if you were to search for on github.com for projects of a particular language, if having the repository language set to GML like that would help. I don't think it's a huge deal. For the most part, I can't really be bothered myself personally to do this for every single repository I have, because there are quite a few of them now. But if it just bothers you to see the language being set to something incorrect, then this is all you have to do to fix it. You just have to add that one line to the git attributes file, and GitHub will recognize that and say, oh, okay, this is a GameMaker project, and it will behave accordingly. This didn't used to be a problem, as you can see. If I were to go all the way back in this organization history, you would see that a lot of the older ones still are correctly labeled as GameMaker language, even though I don't actually have a git attributes file in here. And I'm not sure 100% what Yo-Yo Games changed about the project meta files that suddenly made GitHub think they're YACC files, but Regardless, that's how you fix it. I may or may not go through all 80 or so. God, have I really made that many? All 80 or so projects in this GitHub organization and set the language to GML correctly. But that's it. This is once again one of the minor, shorter, weirder things about GameMaker videos that people seem to like. I hope you found this useful, or at the very least, I hope you found this interesting. If this is something that you've never thought of before, and probably in all likeliness will never think of again. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute towards these videos being made, there will be links to that in all the usual places. I generally make videos that are longer than this. Otherwise, I will see you all later. By the way, before I forget, credit where credit is due. Big ol' thank you to user Deep Churnos on the GameMaker subreddit for making a post about this some time ago and bringing it to my attention. This is honestly something that I probably would not have actually thought about had this Reddit post not appeared and put it on my radar. So if this is something that you find useful, and if you ever run across Deep Churnos somewhere on the internet at any point in the future, be sure to give them a big ol' thank you and an upvote on Reddit if you're seeing this within the next 4 or so months. But that's it. I will see you all later. Special thanks to Connor, David Key, Edward Holt, Emily Koyo, Halo Factory, Posho, Sindra Larson, Tusk, and Zenith for supporting these videos. If you want to see your name in the credits or to hear yourself shouted out at the end, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.